Hello chess friends and welcome to your Out of Chess channel and welcome to an absolutely crazy and spectacular game in the Caro-Kann Defense in the advanced variation. Welcome to a cool game played by SlowChess against Stockfish 16 in very a crazy opening line in which you witness a crazy rook sacrifice as opening theory in the early stage of the game. So here it's not like we'll see something new. This line that you see has been played many times in chess history, but with different outcomes, sort of, because in chess history, in human level, no one could fight, I think, the best continuation over the board. But when the fish is playing wild opening lines, when Stockfish gives itself sort of an advantage in the beginning, when Stockfish says, I have an advantage, then Stockfish, of course, makes something out of this advantage. So in my opinion, really an interesting line of the Caro-Kann Defense. I think this line could be your surprise weapon with the black pieces. Really a spectacular position already in the early stage of the game. So let's see now what happened. Let's dive now into the game here with the white pieces. SlowChess open with the move e4. We have now the Caro-Kann. After move d5 e5, we have the advanced variation of the Caro-Kann defense, and now you play, of course, bishop to f5. Then you want to follow up with e6. You don't want to play e6 immediately because you would lock out your own bishop inside of the pawn chain. So that's why first the bishop out and then fixing the structure. Normal development here by by SlowChess, which becomes now the so-called short variation. Stockfish now keeps the healthy structure here in the center of the board. Normal development here by SlowChess, and now c5, undermining, of course, the small pawn chain that white built here with this d4 e5 advanced setup. Black is trying to undermine, of course, the position around the square d4. Here SlowChess battles for the d4 square with normal development. We have queen to b6. Stockfish plays now a double attack against the pawn on d4, but also now against the weak pawn on b2. We have now normal development also by SlowChess, allowing here Stockfish to grab the pawn on b2. This becomes now certain poison pawn variation where you can take, of course, the pawn on b2, but then you get in a wild tactical line. So you can maybe try, instead of knight to c3, also to play d takes c5 immediately, but then it's not so complicated. I think we play simply bishop to c5, bishop takes queen to c5, and if, for instance, white tries out now to trade off the queens, you don't trade off queens, you play simply queen to c8. And this line I've analyzed at home. It would be also certain theoretical novelty position that has never been played in so far in chess history. Of course, we want to learn a little bit theory here. Queen to c8 actually would be the optimal move because you're keeping your queen connected to the c6 square. And now after a couple more moves, we can play knight to c6, attacking now the queen. And if, for instance, bishop to b5 happens, you still keep your queen connected, as I said, to the square. c2 very weak. White will lose the tempo with the queen. Then afterwards we play simply knight from g to e7, castling a6 b5, maybe also possible then later. So I think here black should be slightly better. This is a perfect position for black because you want to equalize the game as fast as you can. So not a good continuation, I would say, here for white. So that's why for queen to b6, SlowChess didn't want to take the pawn on c5, played this poison pawn variation, as I said, with the move knight to c3. Stockfish plays now also normal development, and even if you try now d takes c5, again, no worries here, because in a potential line after knight to a4, you still have this intermediate check. For instance, if white covers, then you first pick up the bishop. Of course, white picks up now the queen, but again, you have this intermediate attack against the king. You would get an extra pawn. You finally now pick up the queen, and I think, again, good game for black. I would even dare just say completely winning, because you're up a pawn against c2 weak, so not a good continuation anymore here for white. So that's why after knight to c6, Stockfish castle, SlowChess castle, and now the real fun starts. Now Stockfish is tempted to play queen to b2, and you can guess what Stockfish does. Stockfish takes it. It says here, show me what you got. Show me your poison pawn line. I'm not scared to play this stuff. Let's see now what you have prepared. Here we have knight to b5 by SlowChess, and this is actually not the optimal continuation here for white. Probably this game was pre-arranged till the move knight to b5, but I think, again, we should analyze those types of games because we want to really see what's going on the board. The Stockfish engine suggests that you should play here queen to e1, playing simply out of this potential trade of queens, getting your queen active, and maybe then later try to do something here on this side of the board. But after knight to b5, Stockfish plays now beautiful c4. Very well stuff. Allows here even the fork on c7, king to d7. Now finally SlowChess takes, but now also this pawn is falling on c2. And let's see now options for white. This is now very complicated position, very tough to play. I think you have to learn even this line somehow by heart. You have to really know what's going on the board. If, for instance, queen to c7 would have been played here by SlowChess, then you continue with bishop to a3, and you will play knight to e7, and you will eventually get the knight back on a8, because you see the knight on a8 doesn't have escape room, cannot play knight to b6, cannot play knight to c7. So that's why bishop queen to b2 maybe can be played. Look at this, bishop to b2, the rook is hanging, you're trying to escape, but then bishop to a3. If, for instance, bishop to c1 happens, then you still can lock the bishop, can lock the rook, can trap the rook, so you will get your exchange back. Or maybe here, if, for instance, knight to g5 is played by white at an attack against this pawn on f7, you should not worry. You play simply your stuff. You simply go for the knight on a8. Maybe white can grab this pawn, but now you pick up this one. And although in a potential line like this, although white is up the exchange, I would dare to say game over here already for white, because look at this. Black is here, this beautiful 3 versus 1 pawn majority attack on the queen side, with the support of the bishops, with the support of the rook that will eventually get into the game, and the knights are perfectly fine. The knight can maybe jump here to f5, or maybe you can get it here, then follow up with this knight. So the knights are close enough to the action. It's not like one of those knights it's far away. It cannot be included into the game. No, the pieces of blacks are perfectly fine, and eventually when we maybe somehow connect these two passers maybe on the B and C file together, I guarantee you game over here for white. So see, queen to c1, not really the optimal continuation here for white, has been played in chess history. So that's why I'm showing you also this line, because you should not worry. As I said, bishop to a3, the best line, and black should be perfectly fine. After bishop to c2, that's why queen to d2, now played by SlowChess, has been also played so far in chess history. Bishop to b4 by the fish, attacking now the queen, and now comes a counter attack here played by SlowChess, rook to b1. And the really beautiful part about this game, if you put now this position into the lead chess database, in the database or in chess history, no one with the black pieces won ever in this particular line. So that's why, as I mentioned, it's very important to know what's going on the board, because probably you will get maybe this position if you dare to play this line, and then you don't want to make the same mistakes like the people that have play this line in chess history. Now after rook to b1, Stockfish continues now with queen to b1. Now we have rook takes b1, we have here bishop takes d2, and now rook to b7. Here we have an attack by the rook against the king. Stockfish retreats now to c8, and now after rook to c7, an attack by the rook against the king, we have now king to b8, an attack now against the knight on a8. What should you do? If you try here, rook takes c6, then bishop to e3 will be played here by black. F takes e3, then you attack the rook, then maybe the rook gets here, rook to e8, you're trying maybe knight to g5, now we pick up the piece, and in a potential line like this, I think white should be lost here because of this extra pawn here on the c file, because of the passer. This is unplayable position, I think, here for white. So that's why after king to b8, SlowChess tried knight takes d2. Stockfish continues now with first knight from g to e7. Doesn't want to take, of course, the knight immediately, because also the knight on c6 is hanging, and now bishop to g5. SlowChess is playing really here the optimal lines, simply attacks now the knight on e7. We have rook to e8, connecting now the rook to the knight on e7. So SlowChess has now here really played so far the optimal moves, but Stockfish after rook to e8 has, I think, defended all of the stuff, and will eventually go now simply for the knight on a8. What should white do now? If you try here bishop to f3, then eventually we can take here rook take king takes the knight on a8. You can maybe try to pick up this one, but now after knight to e7, knight takes e7, again we would have this passer. You could maybe try to pick up this one, but again maybe the rook can be attacked. very, very tough position. We play simply king to b8, then we pick up the piece. So this line is also not working here for white. So that's why after rook to e8, we have now here knight takes c4 immediately by SlowChess. SlowChess is really trying to get this bishop on f3, putting more pressure against this knight on c6, but now d takes c4 anyway by the fish. We have bishop to f3, and now a beautiful move, bishop to a4, connecting now the bishop to the loose knight on c6. We have a rook to d7, a protection of the pawn on d4, and now h6. Good move here by the fish. We have knight to c7. Look, so SlowChess gets even the knight back into the game, and Stockfish plays now a beautiful, beautiful move here, h takes g5. Really, really well stuff. Let's go back. Instead of this move, knight to c7, what SlowChess could have played, of course, is bishop to e7. But you don't worry, look at this, rook to e7, rook to d6, now we played simply this one, king to b7, you don't pick up the knight immediately, because if you play here king to a8, then of course this could be even a winning position for white, because the rook is coming, we'll get this very important pawn on c4, and white is continuing the game with an extra pawn. So that's why after move h6, here SlowChess tried knight to c7, but Stockfish played now another stunner place here, beautiful h takes g5. So Stockfish allows here again SlowChess to pick up the rook on e8. Very, very wild stuff. So Stockfish is again down the exchange. c3 now by the fish. Stockfish is relying simply on this beautiful passer on the c file, and now bishop to e4. Of course, SlowChess blocks out now the potential progress of the pawn. What should black do now? What should we do now in this particular position? If you play c2 immediately, seems tempting, but actually it's not so good, because after bishop to c2, the knight will get back. Maybe you can play something like f6, so white will get an attack against the king, you escape, we get the rook again. Here we're trying maybe something like this, f3 a4, knight to b5. Although white has only the rook for 2 minor pieces, I would not say that this is completely winning or something for black. I think it's an unclear position in which black will struggle here to win the game. I would not say that this is winning. I think this should be a drawish line for both sides. So see, although it's tempting c2, we should not rush with this pawn. This threat is really present now till the end of the game, but after move bishop to e4, Stockfish again plays a beautiful calm move, king to c8. First of all, dislocates the rook, because the rook is very, very active here. Now the rook has to come on a very fixed square. It's an optimal square for the rook, but now the rook is out of game. That's now the most important part to say. Stockfish continues now with knight to b4. Now prepares to move c2, because you see now in the next couple of moves, although we'll reach a similar position, it's not the same position, because the activity of the rook on the previous line was a little bit different. After knight to b4, what should white do now, pardon me? If you try here knight to g7, then we play bishop to c6, we're trying to trade off the bishops, and now you lock out now the rook here with the bishop to d5, and even if something like a3 happens, now you have this counter attack, c2, bishop takes, knight takes c2, and you see now also in this line the pawn is lost. After a4, we can pick up now this one. So it's a different sequence in which we gain the pawn, although again white has the rook for 2 minor pieces, but the rook is now out of game. It's not so active. Look at this, all of the squares are taken. You can get maybe here to a6, but we'll eventually again attack it and go for the a4 pawn. The knight is now also a little bit further from the action. Now we can maybe create a passer here on the a file, and I would say again game over here for white. So that's why this is not working. Knight to b4 here played by Stockfish. So here SlowChess tried to move a3, and now bishop to e8. Good move here by the fish, allowing here also SlowChess to pick up now the knight on b4. Stockfish is again down the exchange, but actually has a completely winning game because of this beautiful move, bishop to b5. Very, very cool move. Now Stockfish takes out now the whole activity of the rook. The rook is simply out of game. What should you do? For instance, if you try here g4 with the white pieces, then we play king to c7 after something like f3, knight to c8. You see, we will eventually get the rook here, and in a potential endgame like this, the most important part is here we play f5, g takes f5, e takes f5, bishop to f5, and now king to d5 can be played. You see, we get our king very active. We will eventually go for this pawn, create maybe 2 passers. Again, game over, I would say here for white. So Stockfish calculated here after move bishop to b5 and king to c7, knight to c8, that it could actually lock out now the rook on d6. Very cool move. So here that's why g3 played by SlowChess. Stockfish continues now again with the same plan. Here SlowChess tried to move d5. Even if we try here something like f4, look at this, g takes f4, g takes f4, again with the same stuff, knight to d6, e takes d6, king to d6. It's a little bit different now, but I would still say winning here for white, because white, for black, pardon me, completely winning, because we will eventually get our king here with a5, b takes a5, king to a5, and again, black's king would be much more active. We'll eventually get here to b2. In one moment, I think white will be forced to give up the bishop for a pawn. So again, completely winning endgame here for black. So that's why for king to c7, here d5, we have knight to f5. Stockfish again attacks the rook. We have d takes e6. Now, if you try here bishop to f5, seems tempting, but actually after here e takes f5, look at this. This pawn is marching. You don't have access to the c6 square because it's well protected by the bishop, and the king is far away from the action. So again, a lost game here for white. So that's why for knight to f5, d takes e6 by SlowChess. We have knight takes d6, we have e takes d6, king to d6, e takes f7, king to e7. Stockfish is close enough with the king here, is simply picking up now the pawn on f8, and after move f4, bishop to a4 in this particular position. Finally, SlowChess resigned. In one moment, of course, we will push the pawn further. We will get the bishop here. We will go for this pawn on b4 and create a password here. So game over, as I said here, for SlowChess. All of this stuff, all of this wild tactics, all of this crazy sacrifices. We saw Stockfish lost the rook twice in this game. SlowChess was always up the exchange sort of, or had even an extra rook in the beginning, but never could really activate the pieces in a proper way. Stockfish demolished the really e4 with an amazing advanced variation of the Caro-Kann defense. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed a lot. Interesting stuff of the Caro-Kann defense. If you want to see more epic, sharp, brutal chess like this, check out our commented chess games played by computers. Here's the link of our playlist, and if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.